I thought it was slightly more than 2 items, but I guess that's what I have for today. This packaging is... It's always kind of neat, but it's also kind of annoying because, like, you know, it wants to come out of there. You just have to pretty much completely obliterate that packaging. Again. I guess I'm mostly confused because I thought there were 3 things instead of just 2 things, but yeah, I guess I kind of remember today was going to be a little, or a day was going to be really short, and I thought it was the 2nd February, maybe it was 3rd. Anyways, Black Clover Season 2, no, Season 3? Yeah, you can see that one a little bit better. Season 3, Part 2. I couldn't tell if that was definitely a 2 or if it was a weird formatted 1. I'm gonna go under the sticky for some sexy index finger, I guess. I'm gonna take a peek at the back to see the stereotypical region AB, which I think all fairy tale releases have had, and I feel I'm beginning to slur. English dub. Special features are Clover Clips Special Edition and text list opening and ending, which is pretty normal. Really ought to hunt down all the Black Clover Season 2 stuff, because I got the empty box over on the side just waiting for me to that doesn't look healthy. And yeah, this is a Blu-ray 1 and 2 and DVD 1 and 2. I guess I'm always checking those because there's been one time where I guess one of the One Piece releases had a weird thing. And I'm just always paranoid about it now, I guess. And then we've got twirling, something birds never fly. Oh, yeah, I have a sneaky suspicion this one is actually a guy-on-guy romance. Which I kind of sort of processed, but you know, now I look at it, I'm like, oh yeah, I guess that, you know, kind of looks about right. No matter what happens, somebody's about to get hurt. Region A, looks like this has Japanese with English subtitles only. Special features there. Those are supposed to be so twittering, animals, have got to do it shorts, and Japanese promos. So this is, I guess I can kind of see the line through on the twittering. Those middle T's look more like twillering. There's a font issue there. Well, that's pretty straightforward, other than we've got some rogue plastic there, but here's this week's anime DVD collection update.
Alright, so I haven't watched much this past week, just not even a whole lot of No Guns Life. But fortunately it's more than like 1 or 2 episodes, maybe closer to 3 or 4, which is, you know, still not a whole lot, but it was pretty good. So you know, it definitely begins very film noir-esque. And I've mentioned before that film noir is not something that specifically appeals to me, and because of that I tend to be a little wary when a show begins that way, because it's like, how heavy is it going to be leaning on that versus doing something else interesting? And The good news is, you know, this one doesn't lean on that. Well, I mean, that could be bad news for people who really just want that film noir feel, period. But it does its own thing. So I was thinking that it's kind of interesting to bring up Zootopia as a concept, because, you know, one of these big mistakes I hear just come up every once in a while is people say that Zootopia is about racism or an allegory for it or something like that, when that's a very shallow, not really thinking about it. It's somebody's looking to put their own meaning in there, and, you know, I say that and I might be doing the same thing myself. But the problem with all of that is Zootopia is really about bigotry in general. So when people try to say, oh, that's an allegory for racism and that's an allegory for sexism, it kind of misses the point that it doesn't really work for either of those specifically. There's some parallels, but those parallels exist because Zootopia is about bigotry in general, but it's neat because, you know, it's not like it's about how one side is bad or not. It's kind of got its own dynamic in how people are dealing with it, because at the end of the day, when you have these anthropomorphic animals, you do have ones whose biology necessitates them eating other animals, the so-called carnivores. And so what do you do when the when prey and predator are both, you know, sentient and trying to live together, and, you know, the predator animals, you know, are actually trying to be decent people. And it's not like they're trying as and resisting their nature. It's that they either can coexist, but they have unique problems where when you have the night howler problem, I guess, you do have people that become worried about, well, if predators are losing control, then that makes the prey more worried. And then it plays into kind of more democratic sort of issues where, you know, the society isn't like ruling class per se or anything like that. And a whole lot of this point is, you know, Zootopia is about bigotry and not about racism or sexism or anything like that, because it has at its core, okay, we designed and built this world, and while we're exploring this theme, we're not trying to force the real world into it. We're trying to make it where this bigotry makes sense within the context of the world that was created within there. And that's why Zootopia ends up being pretty good, even though the topic of bigotry in shows has a huge potential to get down the won't go broke line. So, you know, that's a whole aside, and, you know, kind of an excuse to say, yeah, you remember Zootopia? That was pretty good. But No Guns Life is, well, it's not like the same kind of show as Zootopia, but it does the same right thing. So, like, it's using film noir, but, you know, there's always the risk of, oh, yeah, so he's just a detective with a gun for a head, right? So it's just basically a detective with a gun for a head. Well, no, it's developing its own world. It almost didn't have to be film noir. It's just that our characters happen to be in a situation where that's a good way to introduce the story. But beyond that, it's playing around with very sci-fi-ish kind of ideas and, you know, just living conditions, psychological. It's exploring. It's some combination of film noir and cyberpunk, and it's not really saying, oh, well, I just want to make a cyberpunk anime that happens to have film noir elements. It really is just doing its own thing, and it's, you know, the film noir is a very natural part of the cyberpunk part that is a very natural part of it, and it does seem to be exploring its own, you know, really well-defined world. It's not saying, it's not defined by these categories, but rather it's created a world in which these categories naturally exist and just kind of flow from the story. And, you know, that's a really weird aside, but it's really good praise, because from a show design standpoint, you kind of watch it and it feels genuine, it feels interesting. It doesn't feel interesting because it's trying to fall into all these different genres. That was the word I was looking for. And of course, obviously, Discord notifications interrupt the thought process. But it's not trying to force it into these genres. It's just a pretty natural outgrowth from a very well-designed world, which I call it well-designed, but, you know, there's some elements of it that seem a little bit on the nose. Like, you have your mega powerful corporation who, of course, controls everything, and that's very cyberpunk. but it blends pretty well when you have the slums that get defined by that, and so you kind of have the film noir that happens because of that. But it doesn't really follow the story beats of either completely perfectly because it's doing its own thing, and it's pretty engaging because of that, I would say. And like I said, I'm only 3 or 4 episodes in, and you know, just busy. I was mostly trying to finish the VR chat world, and I uploaded it to Community Labs yesterday, so it's finally a little bit out of my hands. I mean, I did some updates last night after noticing a couple things I hadn't noticed before, but anyways. Yeah, and then there's other thoughts about things not related to anything I'm discussing here. So many distractions. But, you know, I do plan to watch more of it, especially since the 2 things that arrived today, I mean, there's no reason I would need to start Black Clover in Season 3. I still haven't watched any of Season 1, let alone Season 2. I'm not even quite sure where all the Season 2 DVD Blu-rays are, probably in the box back there. But, you know, that means this is a good thing to start with, and you know, I've kind of still got these as curiosities. That would be Orphan, and then I'm still morbidly curious about Kiss, but that's a little lower on the list. But yeah, so normally I watch anime with my Friday friend, but that got canceled this week, so yeah, it's pretty much just me having watched this. Not really sure if I have anything else to talk about, really. Yeah, we're still early of February, so can't even think about Monster Hunter Rise, so yeah. I guess y'all have a nice week.